This is the Spotlight. On behalf of our school district, we want to welcome you to another edition of the Spotlight, where we turn the spotlight on the arts. We have an exciting show planned for you as we talk about music in our schools and we talk about music education in general with our awesome guest this morning. But before we meet our wonderful guest, let me remind you of just a few dates that may be of interest to you. This Friday and Saturday, March 7th and 8th, Fort Pierce Central High School Drama Department presents Little Shop of Horrors. It's a musical that you don't want to miss. Again, that's March 7th and 8th, 3 shows at Fort Pierce Central High School. Please make sure you go and support our students in their efforts there. On March 13th, 14th, and 15th, again, at Fort Pierce Central High School, it will be the middle school band MPAs, Music Performance Assessments, where all of our bands will come and be rated by some awesome judges. Middle school bands on March 13th, 14th, and 15th. Again, on March 14th and 15th, our chorus students will have their MPA at Lincoln Park Academy. And we invite you to support the band, the chorus, the drama students. We would love to have our community and our parents and friends there to support all of the wonderful music efforts that are going on during the month of March. Speaking about the month of March, this is Music in Our Schools Month. And joining us this morning is our fantastic director of bands at Fort Pierce Central High School, who happens to also be one of the finalists for Teacher of the Year for St. Lucie County, Mr. Matt Boswell. Matt, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Dr. Perry. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. I know you've been in the studio a lot lately, but not necessarily in this capacity. So would you please just introduce yourself briefly to our viewing audience?
Well, I'm obviously the band director at Fort Pierce Central High School. This is my 4th year of teaching there, and I have been blessed to work with an absolutely phenomenal group of students in the band and choral departments over my time there. I'm an avid musician. I have been my entire life, and I love what I do. I love sharing it with everyone out there.
You told me that you were the director of bands, and you also mentioned working with chorus students. As the director of bands, I know your job is multifaceted. Can you explain some of the things and organizations, groups that you work with as the director of bands at Central?
Yeah, being the band director is really a job that is huge. It's a massive proposition. I mean, I have to pick the music we play, I prepare it, I'm there making the copies, stuffing the folders, all the logistical stuff, making sure all the equipment's maintained, inventoried, correctly prepared. Then, of course, the students show up and I have to teach them the music. And then the part that everyone gets to see is the actual performance portion of the job when we're in the public's eye, you know, waving our arms around, looking nice, trying to make sure the kids give the best performance possible. And, you know, that whole process can take 2 weeks or it can take 6 months, you know. Something like marching band takes a lot of months of preparation, but there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work that people don't always see.
Tell me this. You mentioned a connection to chorus, and I know there's a connection to drama. As the director of bands, you have a connection to working with those groups as well. You want to explain that as well?
Oh, absolutely. You know, a really strong school arts program, in my opinion, is one in which all the faculty members work together, and I'm very fortunate to have 2 fabulous colleagues in Miss Arnold and Miss Stewart at Fort Pierce Central that we work very closely together on. The biggest thing we do is obviously our musical is this coming Friday, the 7th, and you know, I'm in charge of the instrumental portion of it. Miss Arnold's in charge of the vocal portion, and Miss Stewart also does all the drama and all the acting, all the stage work. So it's really a true combination of our efforts. And during the school day, we're always sharing ideas and working with each other and in and out of each other's rooms, you know, providing feedback on each other's work. So, you know, true collaboration is key to successful arts performances.
One other question for you about band. Mm-hmm. You mentioned marching band, and you kind of mentioned concert band. But just as a band director, you have many ensembles that you teach as well. Can you mention some of those ensembles?
Obviously, in addition to the large ensembles, marching and concert, we have jazz band usually at most schools, so that's another ensemble, maybe 20 kids. And then we try to get out in the community as much as we can. I know Fort Pierce Central has an arts night somewhere downtown Fort Pierce. I'll be putting together combos, you know, small quartets, quintets, little choirs, and things like that to try to get kids playing, some fun stuff or small ensemble music. We have a district assessment for solos and ensembles where students get to interact one-on-one with professionals on their instruments. So that's another thing we do in addition to the large ensemble work.
And when you're talking about your large ensembles, which would be your marching band and your concert band, but you actually have 2 concert bands. Am I correct?
Indeed, yes.
Great, great. Now, you told us that you were an avid musician. Can you tell us some of your most memorable performances as a musician?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think most people in my shoes would agree to the fact that some of the biggest musical moments in our lives typically occur at the university level when we're doing our undergrads or our masters, because that's where you get that really concentrated amount of people who are very, very dedicated, very good. I can look back on tons of concerts during that time of my life. But even now, I try to perform in the community as well. I'm a member of several community groups within the Tri-County area. And actually, this past weekend, I performed with the Treasure Coast Symphony. And this was a real memorable moment for me because I'm a saxophone player and a pianist. And this concert, they asked me to fill in the percussion section, something that I've never done before. And I'm sight reading on a concert, playing bass drum for Tchaikovsky's Romeo and Juliet Overture. And that was really quite terrifying to be doing that for the first time in front of an audience. And, that's fun for me as a musician, but it's also great in those groups because you see people who are in their 70s and their 80s who are still performing and for whom the arts are still a huge part of their life. And that's really a moving experience for me. I hope that my students, when they're 70 and 80, will still have the love for music that I hope to teach them in their time with me.
Speaking about a love for music, I know there's a lot of what research tells us about music and the arts and why people should participate in the arts. How do you use research, or what does research really tell us, in your opinion, about students and their arts education and how they should be involved in?
Well, I just think there was a study done. There's actually 2 studies in 2007, 2008, that school year, and in 2010, 2011. It was called the 12th grade cohort study, and it was done in the very own state of Florida. What they did was they examined the records of every student who graduated in those school years, and they looked back at what classes they took, the things that they did. And one remarkable finding was that the longer students were enrolled in the arts, meaning they were there for 1 semester, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, there was a marked increase in all of the academic indicators, being graduation rates, being FCAT scores, SAT scores, GPA, dropout rates decrease. I was reviewing the data, and in 2010, 2011, for the average high school graduation rate was 70%, somewhere in the 70s. With 1 semester of arts work, it jumps to 80%. With 2 years, it becomes 83. 3 years becomes 86. When you reach a student who was in the arts for an entire high school career, we're approaching or exceeding 90%. And this includes, music, band, choir, drama, theater, visual performing arts, and dance. And this was done over the entire state of Florida. So for me, if I was a parent with that kind of data, and I want my kid to graduate from school, I don't think there's any better bet in the educational environment than an arts program to help them reach that goal at the end.
When you talk about graduation rates and its connection to the arts and its connection to research, arts connection to the research, you kind of, in a roundabout way, talk about this issue that we hear so much about called engagement. What is it about the arts that engage students to help them graduate, to keep them from being truant for school, to improve their attendance rate? What is this engagement issue?
I think it has to do a lot with what we do. When people come into my room, there's never a bench. There's never I'm sitting off to the side not being involved. We're playing, we're singing, we're dancing, we're doing something the entire time. And as the instructor in front of all these kids, it's very easy to see when students are not necessarily involved. And that's when I can step in and help that student become more engaged. But I think just the fact that it's a performance, we're putting on a show, you're very much engaged in what's going on. I mean, you can't play with only half your mind engaged. So I think that's the secret. And that's something I've had conversations with my colleagues about, in how you can turn math class or English class or any other subject that's not necessarily as engaging for students into that kind of performance opportunity. Make them put a show on, make them show their work in a very public way. That gets students, in that performance, I'm on stage kind of feeling. And I think that really does a lot to improve how hard students work and how engagement. It's all about engagement.
Let's stay on this issue that talks about research and its connection to other things. Oftentimes we hear that businesses are looking for problem solvers, critical thinkers, students with great interpersonal skills. And we find that oftentimes they kind of lend themselves to finding those students that participated in one or more areas of the arts. Why do you think that's so?
Oh, I know it's because the skills that you practice in the arts classroom, whether it's visual arts, drama, music, all of those things. We have a goal. You set a goal. We have a performance coming up. We need to make sure that we are performing at our highest level. Well, what do we have to do? We have to break down the task. Oh, I need to work on this portion of the music today. We need to get together with these stakeholders, with these instrument groups or these voice parts. We need to, as a group, decide how to improve our performance. And all these decisions have to be made within sometimes a very short period of time. The turnaround for a performance can be a week or 2 or 6 months. I mean, it's all different. And those are all skills that we practice very, very commonly in the arts room. And I'm not surprised that a business person would want people to come into their establishment with those skills. And arts kids, if they're really serious about what they're doing in a very successful classroom, they definitely have practiced those skills.
It's all about that teamwork. It's all about collaborating, as we mentioned earlier, the way that you do with music, the vocal teacher, the drama teacher, and work with other teachers to incorporate music or any of the arts into the curriculum, which tends to help us with student achievement, make better students. Mm-hmm. As a community, what can we do to advocate for arts in our schools as well as arts in our community?
I think the biggest thing community members can do is be involved. If there's a concert, if there's a performance, come watch it. I mean, is it always going to be something a type of music or a type of performance you're going to know about and that you particularly listen to all the time? Maybe not. But you might learn something in the process, and it shows that we are interested in having those experiences for our children in our schools. For all the reasons we've talked about, for the teamwork, for the personal development, for the job skills. I would go so far as to say that, how to work in a professional environment. If we want our kids to have those skills, we need to show that we value them. I think the community just being there is the biggest thing they can do. If you have an old instrument sitting in your closet you're not using anymore, there might be a student in the community that could use it. Things like that. Just being there to support us as we put our best foot forward, I think says more than anything.
Let's turn our attention to the month of March. For music educators, the month of March is a fabulous month because it gives us the opportunity to do some things extra. We call nationally, March is Music in Our Schools Month. What is the purpose or this idea of Music in Our Schools Month?
It's just to make the community, make people, stakeholders, teachers, administrators, the community, districts, everything, aware of what we do in the classroom, the skills we are teaching students, what we do, how it benefits them, and how it benefits the community, I think. Because a community without arts is just a much less happy place to live. You go places where they don't have shows, where they don't have performances. I mean, you got to fill your time with something. So I think Music in Our Schools Month is the opportunity for us to show that off, to show what students are capable of, what they are learning, and what the benefit is for not just the students, but for everyone around.
I know Music in Our Schools Month started just in one state. Can you give us some of the history of how it started and how it came about?
Well, I know it was originally started by what was then the Music Educators National Conference sometime in the 70s, before my time. But
that means you're a baby.
Oh, yeah. But indeed, it just grew. I guess it caught on. As the music education movement in America grew, the number of states that participated, the length of the festival, it was a day or a week, I think, when it started, and it grew into multiple weeks, into a month, and now it's national. We have this month. And then in July, they always have the Music Month or in Washington, where all the music educators go to Washington to make our case for why music is important. And around the country, you know, this month is for giving performances. I mean, right here in St. Lucie County, we always have the Music in Our Schools concert, typically somewhere around the month of March. March is typically kind of busy for everybody, but we have concerts. We're out there. I mean, schools try to bring ensembles out. Try to do your best performing in the month of March. You know, hand out pamphlets, make sure your parents understand the benefits of music. And I think that's, in a nutshell, what Music in Our Schools month is about.
Well, you just talked about some of the things that's going on during the month of March. Musically. Why don't you give our audience an update about what's going to happen again at Central this weekend, what's going to happen next weekend at Central, as well as at Lincoln Park,
Sure.
because they're all music activities.
Sure, it's funny. All of these things tend to happen, I guess, in the month of March. It always works out that way. But first, this weekend, Friday, March 7th, Fort Pierce Central is presenting Little Shop of Horrors, which I've had the distinct privilege of working on for the past few weeks. It's going to be a phenomenal performance. That's this Friday the 7th and this Saturday the 8th. I think the shows are at 7 o'clock both nights, with a matinee at 2 p.m. on Saturday. Tickets $10 for adults, $5 for students. Definitely a must-see. You know, it's going to be a real great show. And speaking of the month of March and, you know, putting your best foot forward in performance, all of our secondary music classrooms go through the music performance assessment process, which is where our students get evaluated by very renowned experts in their field. Next week at Fort Pierce Central, starting on the 13th, 14th, and 15th, all of the middle schools in not just the county, but in the four-county area will be coming to Central to be judged. And that's free to the public. If you want to come see what different schools in the area are doing, that's definitely an opportunity. And then next week as well, on Friday and Saturday, the choruses go through the same process, and that will be at Lincoln Park Academy. I believe most of the MPAs start about 3 o'clock on the school days, and on Saturday they typically start in the morning about 9. Free to the public. Absolutely come in and check it out.
Yeah, we would love to have, again, public support for all of those activities. Now, when we're back on this idea of Music in Our Schools Month, I know that there's a yearly theme, and this year's theme is Music Makes Me. When you hear that theme, Music Makes Me, what does that remind you of, or what does that pull out of you?
Oh, I can't agree. I think I can't disagree or agree more. That's a great theme. I know music has made me, the experiences I've been having since I was very, very young. I mean, I can think back to my elementary music specialist. I was thinking before we taped today about that. And that individual down in Martin County really started me on this path. He gave me a job to do at graduation, to conduct a song for a 5th grade graduate promotion. This is way back when. And I really credit that with starting me on this path that I wanted to direct and lead people in music making. And that, I think, and that's continued throughout my years in school and beyond. I really think music has made me who I am today. When I think of my students, what I try to teach them, how to work in an adult world, is how I like to phrase it. You know, I teach students responsibility, how to be responsible for your calendar, for letting the stakeholders know, me, your parents, what's going on. Those are all skills that students need to learn. And I think, in my opinion, there's no better environment in a school than through performing arts to teach those skills, because there's nowhere to hide. You can't sit on the bench. You can't be out of the spotlight. If you're performing in a band or in a choir or in a play, you're being seen. So everything you do is public. So you're 100% accountable for your performance. I think that's a great lesson to teach students. And I mean, music makes me. It makes us who we are.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Now there are many national observances going on, and I know one of the main ones that comes out of the Music National Conference, as it was started, is the world's largest concert. It generally happens on the second Thursday of the month of March, and that world's largest concert is when students sing the same music at the same time, and it's televised. Mm-hmm. Are there any things like proclamations or things that may be going on during the month of March that are part of Music in Our Schools Month?
Absolutely. You know, we always do our annual thing at the school board meeting here. I think in legislatures and state capitals around the country this month, there's things going on. There's performances. I personally have a student who's performing in the Honor Band for America, which is next week, I think in Indianapolis. And that's an incredible honor to be selected out of students across the country. And it's all, again, tied to Music in Our Schools Month. And I just think it's the greatest thing.
What are the other things that we could be involved in, or that teachers can be involved in, that may just highlight music? It may be activities where you bring somebody in, or decorating your door, or dressing in music. What are those kinds of things that...
Just get out there. You know, if you've got kids that are putting on a show, doing anything, just do it. I mean, at the beginning of the school year at our school, Miss Arnold, like our choir director, she had kids singing in the cafeteria. You know, let's get some instruments for her, drum up some interest for her subject. I think that's great. You could do that at any school. I don't think many administrations would be averse to livening up the atmosphere a little bit. So that's one thing you can do. Just making people aware of what you do. Like you mentioned, doors, passing out flyers, bulletin boards. Just make people aware of what we do.
Music is important to all of us. And it is a part of the core curriculum as established by No Child Left Behind. But we often find that music, the arts, can be in danger when something has to be changed in a curriculum. Why is it important that we keep music and the arts as a part of our curriculum?
Well, I think for all the reasons we've discussed today. Number one, the data that shows that students who go through this process are more successful. Why would we want to eliminate something that is successful? Number two, for what the students learn, the professional skills to survive in the adult world. I think those are essential. And why would we take away that opportunity to do so? You know, being involved, making sure people know that you support the arts, I think is the number one step to making sure it stays in the curriculum. Petitioning your legislatures, the state government, the district, everyone, make sure they know how important your child's participation in the arts is, and that not just that they have an experience, that it's a quality experience, that it's not set up not to be successful, or it's not supported enough. It's not a cheap proposition, but neither is athletics, neither is many of other things that we do, yet those things never seem to be on the chopping block.
We're very blessed in St. Lucie County that we have school board members, an entire school board, I should say,
Absolutely.
that is very supportive of the arts and arts education in all of our schools. So we're at the point right now where we're not exactly worried about chopping, because they're saying that no, we won't
Absolutely.
eliminate.
Thank you.
Thank you to our school board members. Now, we've talked about music education, and we've talked about Music in Our Schools Month. But we also told our viewing audience that you were one of the finalists for Teacher of the Year for St. Lucie County,
Indeed.
a music teacher, and we were so excited. So can you tell us about the process of becoming the Teacher of the Year and one of the finalists for your school, and what that means to you as you represent teachers at your school, but also music teachers?
Oh, well, I should also say the other two finalists were also resource teachers, media specialists. I think that's just a lovely thing.
Totally awesome, yeah.
Lovely thing to see that, you know, those people that are not FCAT subjects, we do get recognized for the work we do. How I felt, it was a shock. I had no clue this was coming. I mean, Mr. Smith, my principal, I kind of surprised us, dropped it on me one Friday. Oh yeah, you're Teacher of the Year. It surprised me during my class, and you know, I smelled something was fishy, but I didn't know what it was. And sure enough, that's what it was. Like, wow, talk about a shock. I mean, I've only been there 4 years, and it's been a long 4 years, a lot of work, but it was just great to have the opportunity to sit down and think about what I've done and the teaching practices I have, and preparing the stuff for the district level, and then again for being a finalist, preparing for the state level. You know, it really gives you a chance to reflect on what you've done and what you can do better. And it's just been a huge learning process for me, and I'm so blessed to have had the opportunity to represent what is a really great community of arts educators in St. Lucie County and within the area, the 4-county area around us. And I'm just so honored to have the opportunity to represent them at all.
Well, we appreciate all of your work, and we know that you were just deserving of being the Teacher of the Year for Fort Pierce Central High School, and for being one of the finalists for Teacher of the Year for our district. I like to always ask my guests, if you had an opportunity to speak to parents, to entice them to ensure that their students participated in music or in the arts, what would you tell the parent?
I would tell parents that, you know, we all want our children to be successful. You really need to find what it is your child wants to do. You know, I think the arts are great. You know, it's for the reason we talked about, higher graduation rates, all those things show up. But just the skills and the opportunity, the team building, the personal development that comes with performing arts, I would encourage all parents to send their kids in that direction. Find something. If the arts isn't what you want kids want to do, find something for them to do, and that is the key to success. We all want our children to be successful.
I know your band program had a very successful weekend this past weekend. We talked about what's coming up, but can you give our audience just an eyesight of what happened last week as it relates to high school bands?
Yeah, the middle school bands, their assessment is next week with the choirs, but high school band was this past weekend, and you know, this is my fourth year, obviously, at Central, fourth year going through the process, my second year taking two bands, and you know, they perform extremely well. It's a little challenging this year because of the schedule. Everything was pushed up. Usually it's in the month of Music in Our Schools month, March, but didn't happen this year because of the calendar. And, you know, the kids did a great job. We put some difficult music on the stage up at Vero Beach, and it was a very successful experience. My kids learned a lot from the process, and I know I can speak the same for my other high school colleagues in the county and in the area. Everyone always it's nerve-wracking. It's very unfun when you're in the moment, but when you look back on it, it's a great experience for everybody.
Now, we know band directors' jobs are full speed ahead. Even though Music in Our Schools month, this is the month of March, music has been a part of the students' lives that you work with since day one. And you're not finished yet, even with this. Can you kind of give us an insight to what's going to happen as we go through the closing of our school year? Because we have about 11 or 12 weeks left in the school year, but it's still full speed ahead for band students. Can you give us an insight to that?
Yeah, I mean, after MPA is over, you know, the bands that qualify for the state level, they spend another month or 6 weeks preparing for that. That's, I guess, at the beginning of May or so. But those that don't, we spend the next few months working on fundamentals. It's pretty much a springboard into the next year. We need to send our seniors out right, make sure they're ready for college auditions. I have several students who are going to be auditioning around the state. I'm working with them on that. I know my colleagues are as well. And, I mean, it's preparation for next year. The wheels start turning for marching band in August. You know, I'll be meeting with arrangers and designers and things like that, and with students trying to pick music and those things. And this goes on across the county. Of course, we have concerts for the parents in May. We have our spring concerts and any other small events that, you know, come our way. So it's a never-ending job. We start at the end of July, and we keep going. And then in June, we sort of finish, but it just kind of starts again for next year. It's a never-ending job.
As we close the show, won't you give our audience those dates and times again for Little Shop of Horrors and the activities for next week, because we would love to have them come.
Absolutely. Little Shop of Horrors, Fort Pierce Central High School, Friday, March 7th and Saturday, March 8th. 7 p.m. both nights and 2 p.m. on Saturday. Tickets are $10 for adults, $5 for students. Next week, we have music performance assessments for middle school, again at Fort Pierce Central High School, the 13th, 14th, and 15th. That's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Starting about 3 p.m. each day. Choirs will be at Lincoln Park Academy on Friday the 14th and Saturday the 15th, starting at 3 p.m.
Mr. Boswell, thank you for joining us here on the Spotlight. It's been wonderful having you as our guest. Congratulations on your selection as Teacher of the Year for Fort Pierce Central High School and one of our 3 finalists. To our viewing audience, thank you for tuning in. This has been another edition of the Spotlight, where we turn the spotlight on the arts.